Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be back on YouTube. We used to do a lot of YouTube videos that we published, and then we did other things. And I think, looking over a lot of the different videos that I've created in the past, using Melina, using all different kinds of material back then, some things are no longer available, or some things I found better ways. And so we thought that, that's Colin and I, because Colin and I work together on putting these programs together, that we thought that we would do a more updated version of how I'm doing it today, and what the methods are, and what the materials that I use, what the tools that I use. I want to share everything about what I'm doing. I consider myself an open source. I don't like to hide anything. There's no secrets, no trade secrets, no secret tips. I want to share with you everything that I know, because that's what it's all about, so that you can all do some really cool things and have confidence in that you're doing the right thing, because I've trialed it out and it all works. Right. So that's kind of where we're at. So
yeah, and I mean, we had so much fun. For those of you who watched live streaming the Japan Blooms event that Hitomi was part of last month, that we were like, we got some good feedback streaming that on Hitomi's channel. We're like, we should start streaming again, or at least start streaming again and creating content for YouTube. So we're, I guess, committing to doing a kind of a monthly tips and techniques live stream here on her channel. And then who knows where that leads to. Maybe we start doing, a video here and there as well. So yeah, excited to be back.
Yeah. So, and this also leads to like a virtual workshop that I'm going to be leading as well.
So full disclaimer, we have, a little bit of an announcement. We might as well get it out of the way first before Hitomi does her little demonstration here today, but we are for those of you that are on Hitomi's email newsletter list, you saw that we announced this morning her structure building workshop that she's going to be doing. It's a virtual workshop, 3-week program that's starting in April 20th to May 7th. And what we're going to show today is a little bit of a teaser, and but also a very valuable little lesson today about structure building, specifically a flower crown. So if you're interested in her workshop after you kind of watch today's session, you can go to her website and sign up. We're offering a special 20% discount for people who are watching the live stream. So just enter code YouTube20 for 20% off the registration. It's $199 Canadian, so that'll bring you down to $160. We wanted to do a really affordable virtual class on structure building. Anything else you want to add?
No, it's really basically that's the live virtual workshop, but it preceded by these little tips that I'll be just sort of giving you hints of what we're going to explore, and then it's a lot of build up, because I think the reason why I'm doing this is because I've had a lot of requests. I'm already in 2 major live workshops about structure building. Everybody's becoming very curious, because I think at one point, when you're starting out with flowers and you're designing in vases and you have a lot of fun with it, and then pretty soon you're thinking like, wow, I'd like to make something that has an interesting shape. How do I do that? So that's where the structure building comes in, and it's really kind of a designer look, because it's kind of like creating a pattern for dress. I think I mentioned that in one of my posts. It's like creating a pattern for a dress that then you can follow to kind of create a much more couture look that you're styling it. So that's what the structure building, the underlying foundation becomes, is something that guides you to do something a little bit more advanced, a little bit more meticulous kind of plan than just putting flowers in a vase. So that's kind of where we're going with it. And I wanted to kind of start from the grounds up. So some of my tips and tricks that I'll be doing in these little short YouTube videos live from here on monthly are little tips that will give you a foundation that will lead to the next step. So without further ado, I thought I just...
Yeah, I was just...
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to quickly, because you were going on, I did briefly bring up the schedule. So for those of you who are also interested, just so that we can get into the full meat of today's session, we do have the schedule up here. So April 20th and 21st, they're going to be focused on flowers to wear, kind of going from basic to more advanced. as well as the following week, the 24th is a Wednesday, and April 27th, which is a Saturday. Hand-tied bouquet structures going from simple and more basic to advanced and creative hand-tied structures, and then into creative design for her final session on April 28th. And then, of course, as with most of our virtual programs, there's actually going to be individual student little challenges at the end of each session, but then we'll also be doing a student project, which we're going to have a live student review finishing the class a week and a half after the final session on May 7th. That's a Tuesday. So yeah, if you're interested, again, check out Hitomi's website, and everything's there at hitomigilliam.com.
Yeah, so these challenges at each end of each one of the sessions is like where you're going to be building a structure that I showed you, so that you are kind of practicing with me so that it leads to actually flowering it. So I think that way it's a small challenge, but you've tried it. It's not that you just watched it. You actually have to make it so that we can see, what that you followed up and did the homework. So that way, you have kind of a list of things that you can do now, a list of things you can make now, whether it's for prom or whether it's for bridal kind of work, whatever. So it's really about knowing how to build these structures and have it prepared for your busy season. So today, I'm going to be doing a kind of a simple version of a floral crown. That's because I decided to do this because I just posted one floral crown that just went crazy. People loved it, loved it, loved it. And so I realized that that's one thing about social media. When you see that something is really kind of taking off and people are really enthused about it, that just means that people are curious as to how it's made, what it's made out of, and all that sort of stuff. So that's why I thought that I would give you a heads up on the floral crown, what that is in the kind of a basic stage. And so what I wanted to do to start with is just go over some tools and some supplies that has to be on hand to be able to do it. And so my sort of set of tools that I want to share with you right here, of course, I have a pair of pruners for cutting flowers. I have my choky scissors, which is for cutting wire, but it's also good for snipping any kind of branches and flowers as well. I also have a needle nose plier that is serrated here, so it has a grip. I use that for a certain kind of wire or metal work. And this is the needle nose plier that's smooth. So if I'm using like a rounded aluminum wire and I don't want to put a scratch on it, because you would with this serrated, you would get scratches on it. So you want to use the smooth one if you want to keep a nice clean profile on that rounded aluminum wire. Now I'm using less and less of this because exposed aluminum wire is becoming less and less in demand. I think it's just that we've gone through so much of that somehow we're kind of moving on. And it's so much more about flowery and tendrils and kind of gardeny anyway. So I'm using a little less of that, but still you need it on hand for when you need it. And then I also have the snip that I use. These are end cutters. These are real quick, easy to handle, very light end cutters, and that's used to actually trim out the bind wire when I bound some things together, and I trim it out so it looks really clean. The reason why we do all those tools and the right tools for the job, and especially like that, the cleaning, the tied end of bind wire and things like that, is because every structure that I'm building today, I like to think that they're not single use. The only time it's single use is when it goes on to a customer. But there's a lot of times, and I'm looking at this whole project right here, the floral crown, to be a project that you should be very interested in participating in, because we so often have a lot of flowers that's broken, that's short stemmed, or things in the garden that you just collect here and there that are short stem, and you wish that you can do something with it that would help your business. And so, some of those shorts and things like that, I kind of collect them into a little tray like that. And I'll show you a little bit afterwards, after I finish using those, what's underneath there. It's got a chicken wire roll in there and water, so that they're hydrating like this. And so what I want to do in preparation for any kind of floral work like this that uses very short stem or just no stem at all, is to have them cut short already and have a tray of selection that I want to use, I'm going to pick from that I'm going to be gluing. But what I want to do is hydrate it overnight in water. What I would do also is spritz this with a mister so that it's very hydrated on the surface, and then cover it with plastic and put it into your refrigeration unit so that they become very, very turgid and is in the freshest, the most turgid state that you want when you actually glue them. And of course, after you glue it together and make it in advance of your event or your photo shoot or whatever, what you want to do is you want to spritz it, cover it with plastic, and put it in refrigeration up until the time that it's being used, so that it's as fresh as possible. Because when you do it that way, it's fully hydrated in a hydration box or in a cooler with plastic cover, you're going to have the flowers last so much longer. Most of my work like this, that's glued together like this, lasts no less than 2 or 3 days, even if it's left out in the open. But if it's spritzed and stored overnight in a cooler, it can last 4 to 5 days. So it's really quite amazing how resilient flowers are after it's cut and then it's glued to a surface. And I'll talk a little bit about what the surface should be like that will also make the flowers last even longer. So that's kind of what I wanted to start with. So those are the tools, and talking about the flowers and how to prepare them in advance. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the surface that you're gluing to. So the surface that you're gluing to could be just as simple as just a headband that you buy from the drugstore or from grocery store, and then you do your work on it. You can do that. But because of most of my structures, and especially things like floral crown, I want to have the structure made in advance, and I want to be able to use it and reuse it, because by reusing it, because I'm making it for my own photo or for your editorial photo shoot. And so what I want to do is reclaim it and take the flowers off and use it again. Because the more times that you can do that, and that's when I call it reuse to reduce. When you reuse your structure that you build, that's why the structure has to be made really well. So it's not just slopped together and that it's just loose and it's not very sturdy. Like if you make it really, really well made, it could be used many times over. And that's really, really important to me, because by doing that, then if you reuse, you reduce the amount of material you have to use again to replenish your stock. So the more you reuse your structures, and that's why, that's one of the reasons also that I'm kind of wanting to do this, is this whole message of, if you're going to make something, make it so that it lasts, so that you do reuse, so that it reduces the amount of purchases that you have to repeat making over and over again. So that gives us a little sense of pride as to how well our structures are made, so that it withstands the adversity of all the wear and tear of it. That's the key. And so the mechanics is really important to me. So what I want to show, there's just 2 things. So the surface for gluing should be sort of fuzzy or fibrous, because then the glue sinks into it so that it's not like a slippery slope. It's not a slippery surface where glue could peel off of it. What you want is a fuzzy surface, because then it adheres really, really well. That's the reason why I really love like chenille. Like for the most basic like headband, I'd make it out of chenille. And some of my future workshop where I'm actually going to show you some real basic stuff that's so easy to use for commercial kind of work, quick to make, easy to use, and very inexpensive. Those I'm going to do with the chenille, because it's fuzzy, and so when you put glue on it, it sinks in to that fuzz, and so it makes it very, very firm attachment. And so what I do quite often, just to create a little something, to put a cluster of flowers, if I'm making a corsage, for instance, or even like a headband, I might make something like this. And I've shown this many, many times in the past, because this is an old-time trick, but it's a very good one. And what it is basically I bring this across like this and make a circle. And then I go and make it a figure 8. So it's like this. And then I bring those in to make like a butterfly, like this. And then I just take a piece of bind wire and just put that together I'm just getting a little fiddly here. Put that together like this so that it makes like a little butterfly. But what I do is put the 2 small loops on the top and the bigger loops on the bottom. So what that does is if you have, especially if you have like a big rose like this. Now, only time that you're gonna use big rose like this into your flowers to wear is when you're making something really large, like a big, huge floral headpiece. It's also very heavy, so it needs to be positioned very tight to the head and not way up on the top where it has a problem with swinging because it's so heavy. But the thing is, with rose, you have, with all these calyx, I'm going to take those off. And then I'm going to cut it just really short like this. So what I want to do, like there's 2 ways of doing this. I can actually, I've done some videos with where I've actually put the chenille glued into it so that it's attached to the chenille, and then chenille then is glued down. But actually, quite simply, you can actually just cradle it into this little kind of V that's been created so that it's glued to the back of it on both of these arms of the chenille. If you do that, then it has a lot of adhesion, the surface for adhesion, and it also has, you'll have other material tucked into here and there, so it gets lots of gluing to give it lots of support. So that's why these are very valuable, because it gives you gluing surface here and also has this cradle here to put any kind of flowers that has that kind of the calyx, like carnations are the same, and the rose. So anything, and it's also anything that's really heavy that needs really solid adhesion. So that's really important. So that's something that you might think about using it in case of emergency sometimes too, because sometimes you make something and it looks like really good and then it's looking like it's wobbly. Now I gotta do something to fix it. I would tuck in a little bit of chenille loop in there so that gets glued down in more spots than just one glue spot. That's the key. Okay, so then the other thing that I like to use, and this is kind of the topic for today, the floral crown that I showed you a picture of, I think, in the some of the advanced sort of notification that I sent out, something like this. This is a very simple version of it. We can get much more elaborate. If you're doing like some really humongous thing, then you're gonna have to take a lot more care to be able to support any kind of weight or any kind of extensions and all that sort of stuff. So you're gonna get more intricate with your structure building. But what it is basically like a headband. And then these are my yarn covered wire extender. That's what I'm calling it now. It used to be Middlino extender because I used to have Middlino in it. But Middlino is very scarce. And so instead of using that, I'm just using wire, sort of compounded wire and yarn now. And it's a little bit thinner now so that but it's very strong. Like this is really, it's got a lot of wire in there. So it's very strong so it can support things. This is very flimsy at the top. So it needs light material to be glued up on there so that it bounces around and gives you that kind of beautiful bounce in a design like this, but it can't be a real heavy material, of course. So that's what I want to kind of show you how to make today. So I'm using, actually, these are what I make, and I'm going to make one in the green, so that, because that's always good for the underlay. It looks like actually a vine. So I make these, and I make them quite long. So it's like this, but I always have it rolled up like this. This is how I store it. I just want to show you a color collection of mine. This is all of it that I keep making in all different colors, because anytime I need it in whatever color that I want to design the structure in, I just dig into my pile. I keep making it. That's just my hobby. I think I can get into business selling these, I guess. But anyway, that's kind of what this is. And I particularly like this color, any kind of green the best, because it hides into everything that you do. So it camels really nicely in your structure. But before we start with that, I want to show you how to make the band. Now the band could be, you could get a band that's bought. But then if you do that and you want to treat it with yarn so that it has that fibrous surface for gluing. This is really important that this fibrous surface here, because this is where it's going to accept the heaviest, biggest blooms. is going to be attached to here, onto which then you glue lighter things. So it's very, very important. So what I use, I make my own. And so that's what I did here. I make my own and I put it on the inside of this whole structure. So what I do is I take flat wire of any color, it doesn't matter. In fact, what's really great is if you have a lot of used pieces, odds and ends, I would just turn it into some of these structures because it's just the best way to use some of this material. But what I do is I cut it and then I actually fold it in half, and in this case, so that it's doubled. So I'm going to go in and fold it like this. So it's doubled because the single is not thick enough, it's too flimsy, but double is really good. So what I do now is I'm going to take the needle nose plier that's serrated, and I'm going to actually pinch this. I'm going to flatten it first. But you know what, before I pinch it, let's get the ribbon in there because this could be tied to the mannequin head. So let's see the ribbon. I'm just gonna go for just sheer ribbon, just a thin ribbon like this. And I'm just gonna take it long. And I'm just gonna slip it in here like that and tie. Like that. Maybe tie twice so it's nice and tight. So it's just done ahead of time. So I'm just gonna show you this end, but you're gonna do it on both ends. And then what you're gonna do is then use the needle nose plier and press it down so that it really is nice and tight like that, like that. And then on this side, you do the same. So I guess I'll just go ahead and put another one. Now you can do all kinds of things because you can also easily put like a comb on this so that it attaches by combs. You could do it that way as well, depending on how the hair is done. But the tie is always kind of reliable because you don't tie it underneath, you tie it to the back so that it's hidden. But it's a good way because then you can pin in the rest of it up on the top or clip it in up on the top to make it just a little bit more sturdier. So I'm just going to go ahead and tie that. Like that. And then I'm going to also flatten that as well. And just use this to really clamp it nice and tight. Like that. So you have the tie on either end. So what you want to do now is I'm going to take actually a bunch of U-glue. And I'm going to dot it like here and there. The reason for that is so that as you put the yarn, it sticks to the spot because just in case something comes undone, that it doesn't unravel the whole thing. So I'm just gonna just do that much of it and just start. So I'm gonna start by, and I'm gonna use that yarn. And you're gonna just start binding this together. And you need the U-glue so it doesn't slip off. That's really the key. So you wanna kind of just go back and forth and just bind it around and around. So this is gonna take a little bit of time. And you wanna do it nice and tight. But it really helps to have that U-glue that it attaches to so it doesn't slide around. So that's all you do is do that over and over and around the whole thing. I guess if you are like a little bit short of time or you're not patient enough to do this with a yarn, you could go in and felt it or something like that. Use felt, but still use the U-glue so that it attaches to it. And then after the felt is glued on, attached, what you want to do is and I'll show you in a minute what I do even with this method. So what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to go to that spot for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bullion because that helps just kind of hold it in place And so I just go across this multiple times, kind of crisscross it so that it's held in place as well that way. And I think actually what that does for me, I like to think, and I just do this so it holds right there on the glue. What that does is it gives you a nice backing so that it looks like it's been stitched on. I really like the look of bullion on the surface, any kind of fabric or textile surfaces, because it looks like it's been sewed on. And so it has a much more finesse look than just the yarn alone. And like I say, that if by chance you kind of snipped a piece of yarn as you're working on it or something, or you got this big glob of glue on it and you want to get rid of that patch, then you can still go back and fix it because it's fastened in most places with all these intermittent glue and then the bullion as well, so you can fix that section that needs to be fixed. So it's all like, it all comes from really years of trying it over and over and finding different problems that I've had with it and how to resolve some of those problems. I mean, all the fixes has been done to accommodate that. So that's kind of how I do the band. And then that way you can shape it into exactly the head size you want. And depending on how much of the flowers are going to be on across the top and to the side, you will determine that length based on the headband being a certain long. So that's what you do to start with. And so then you have this. And then now what I'm going to do is show you how to attach the extenders onto it. Oh, but before I do that, let me show you my latest way of doing the extenders that will make it easier for you. So my latest way is actually having two pieces of, this is a 18 or 20 gauge wire, and I'm going to actually put this together, seam it in the middle with a little bit of just tape through the middle, and then I'm going to cut a piece of aluminum wire that's a little bit shorter than this, so like this to this, so that the end of it is going to be the 18 gauge wire. So what I want to do then is attach this to these two together. So that's what I've done here, is I got the aluminum wire attached to those two lengths that's connected together of the 18 gauge wire. So after I do that, and I have this, then I am able to make these extenders. And so, you know, I wanted to make sure that you know how to make these so that you can get cracking on that. And so with this yarn, basically what I do is I start out by, in this one, like this is just a new way of doing it. I'm just going to insert this in here like that, and then go to the end from there, and then work my way back. That's how I start. So basically, I start by adding down the line a little bit, and then work to the tip, and then work back. And about 2 inches in, I can start to spin this so it goes a lot faster. And by spinning, that also means that I'm going to triple ply it. So that means I'm going to take this and bring this up like this so that now it's 3 ply, right? So I'm going to just add this to this spot here and start working with the 3 ply from here on, because then I can just spin it. And this is how it gets done a lot faster because you're going 3 ply at a time. So that's kind of what I do. And so it's actually a very quick way of making these. And once like the 3 ply runs out here, I just go back and add another two ply to it. So meanwhile, what I'm going to do is bend this over, and that's why I have them in a curl, so that I have these made into rolls so that they're ready to use. So if I have a lot of these, it makes it a lot easier to be able to make as much as I want when I need to make it, instead of having to make it in advance or having to make it at the time of making. So I'm going to just stop there so that I can then show you how I'm going to construct that whole thing. Anyway, that's how it's done. So I have this band. I also have a bunch of bind wire cut. So then what I'm going to do is start creating some of this structure. So the best part is, you want to keep the tips to the ends. So you want to start actually adding this to the band with this maybe bent. Like let's bend it like this, because that gives you a little bit of a window like that. And don't try to twist it because that adds bulk. Just add the bind wire here like this, and then this could go elsewhere afterwards. But then this way, then I can add this as an extension, like right here, so that it goes down further to accept more flowers to be glued into those little windows and to the extenders itself, because that's what is going to accept the glue. So I have two lengths of bind wire, some short and some long, so that some of it goes over the band. But also here is where I'm going to build out some of this so that it spills out of this, so that what that does is allow me to add extra extension to the front or to the back. And then having done that, I'm going to go and add extra length here to go even longer on this one, so that it's maybe like this. And then maybe, and then like this, and maybe like that. So this one now is longer on this side, so it'll kind of go over the back of the ear or in the front, whichever you might want to drape the flowers. So those are the extensions that often will have some vines or like hanging amaranthus, so that it has those drippy side pieces, that kind of a look. But you can see how this is starting to shape up.
I have a quick question asking what brand is the flat band wire?
That is Smithers Oasis flat wire.
Excellent.
And it doesn't matter what color, because you're going to end up covering it up anyway. So again, I'm going to start another wire extender, and I'm going to start making some interesting loops out of it in advance to add to what I have there. So I'm going to take some of that wire, bind wire again, and create these loops. And I'm going to show you in a minute how to cut it. So I want to just kind of, this one here, I want to just make some bunch of loops. And with this one, what I might want to do is create like a little bit more of a coil, so that it might accept some face flower that might need extra support. I'm just anticipating, and it just means more gluing surface anyway, so I think it's always helpful to have some of these spots. So I might do that and add a little extra with that. So, basically what I'm doing is just sort of freestyling it. I'm just trying to make an interesting sort of structural form that gives me more surface to glue onto. So maybe this one here, I'm going to keep this little scroll a little bit more prominent, so that that could become part of the gluing surface. I always want to keep a little bit of that tendril in place and not worked into the spiral, into the heart of it where things get glued to it. I like having that little bit of end loose, so that it gives me a point of attachment for anything that's kind of drapey, or maybe even a stem that needs to have a little bit of support and give it direction. So, basically this is what I have right now. So at this point, what I want to do is clean these wires up. You want to be doing that every now and then. So that's what I use this end cutter for, is I'm going to use it to twist tighter and then cut. Twist and cut. Twist and cut. It just makes it nice and clean. Because anything that you're making, structures like this that you want to reuse, you want it to be pristine as a structure itself. You don't want any kind of shoddy mechanics when you're making something that's semi-permanent, multiple use. And then this one here, I will also cut off of this, tighten and cut, tighten and cut. Because sometimes our hand is not strong enough for it to be really, really tight. So that's why this end cutter is very, very useful. So you're going to start by that. And I may make one more. So I'm going to make another one that is just a different configuration. And, you know, it's like I say, just kind of freestyling it. I think that's what makes it kind of fun, because really in the end, you're going to have these pieces and you're going to now then freestyle and place and bind randomly so that it looks really good. Maybe this one here, maybe I want to bring that over here. And maybe I'm going to do something like this. You know, it's kind of just half guessing, but the thing that's really great about all this is it's all shapeable, like it's all malleable. So it really doesn't matter that it is this, because then, you know, when you want it to go that way, you can just bring it over that way and tie it down. So this just gives you like just a real good start of a mixture of tying, a mixture of shapes that it creates, these little windows that it creates, that could be very useful. So now what I'm going to do is go over that and use this to, okay, so I have this piece going to the front like this, maybe. So maybe what I want is this piece, let's see, maybe this piece to go. It almost looks like a little bit like a headphone, doesn't it? But that's kind of what it needs to be. It's headphone for flowers. You can imagine you can also probably use headphone, a simple headphone to use, do some big construction, because that'll give you some interesting points of attachments, actually. Or like muffs, already has an instant mechanic to which you can add on surfaces that's good for gluing. So you can kind of let your imagination go, but you know, with this one, you have control of exactly the shaping that you're hoping to get out of it. So I'm attaching wherever it overlaps the other, like wherever there's that overlap of one wire to the other, I'm going to attach and tie there so that each one of those junctures are nice and tight. That's the key. Everything is tied together solid so that you don't have any chance of it. Like you can see how this goes like that. And then this brings this one out further that way. I'm going to bring this little tendril over here. So it has this. And I want to use the long wire to tie that one down. So you can see how this goes. And this is really basically the structure building part of this headpiece, the floral crown. So you can see that this area has a little bit more crisscrosses, and this could be brought down a little bit. It's starting to look definitely like a telephone operator headphone. But just remember, if that's what it looks like and that seems really weird, then you can just bring it back and then have more here, so that, or we can just bring that here and then bring that there so that it has a little bit more to the side. So it really depends on how you feel about it, that you can then basically attach it in different spots to get as much gluing surface as possible. This is really important, that not only do you have that band to glue onto for the base stuff, but as you can see, when you have a big rose like this, what you want is something like this, so that, like, or this, so that there's a cradle to which it can glue to all the way around, or if it's coming forward, that it has a cradle to not only glue on the back side, but it has a cradle here that it glues to so that it faces out. So that's why you need as much of this gluing surface as possible to be able to handle the weight and the size of your material. I hope that makes sense. So that's kind of, I give you an introduction basically to the structure making of the floral crown. You can see when you have all these pieces already made, the extenders made already, how easy, how quick it is to put this together. And really, honestly, it almost doesn't matter how it turns out, like, because just as long as that it has the surfaces to be able to handle a lot of gluing of flowers. Like you want to have as many of these loops as possible, because those loops also are good for cradling and gluing. That's what you want, is have as much opportunity as possible for adhesion. And furthermore, you want to have as much area for gluing surface. Just having opportunity to move things around. And also these tendrils to be used in such a way so that it can become part of, like a line flowing through. And then this could be, it could lead one of your vine to a spot like that, or a little tendril so that it can actually hold a stem. So that it just gives, but the best part of this whole extender is it's movable, so that you can move it around and change it if you need to on some of these ends. Like it can go in different spots. So that's why it's really good and very useful, is because it's malleable and you can shape it as you need it to style it. The key is that it's wired, so that even if I have flowers on here and I feel like that flower is coming too close to the face, I could still move it out. Like that's the thing about this structure. So does that make sense for structure building today, for this little short little demo? That these are the ingredients and these are the materials that I'm going to be using to flower it.
Yeah, that's great. So let us know, either on comments here down the line, or maybe on Hitomi's social media. Let us know how that helped, or what you choose to do with this kind of technique. And again, if you're interested in her workshop, please visit the website. So
yeah. So it's really it really is very fun. Mm-hmm. Like you can really get into this, and you can imagine, these are little exercises that you can do with all these leftover shorts. And so, in the shop, if you have a few little odd blooms and some of the flowers, maybe like this one here, I've had this for a long time, it's fading, but I just want to get one more shot of it in some kind of composition. So you can put this together and put it on one of your employees and get that beautiful picture for the editorial shot. So anyway, I think it's a great way of using a lot of beautiful flowers in a very small space and do something that's really fun and quick. So reuse to reduce is the most important thing, so that you can do it over and over and do some really cool things to post. Thank you.
Yeah, so look for, we're going to be doing another live stream next month in March. So keep an eye out on Hitomi's YouTube channel for when we schedule that. It'll probably be middle of the month. But we're looking forward to being here at least once a month going forward, maybe a little more often if we have the time.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I really enjoy this, because it's really a lot of new ways that I'm finding to do things, and it gives me lots of joy to be experimenting and trying out different things. So yeah, it's fun. Thank you.